Hello, listeners. Been wondering how you can help the show? Probably not. But here are 5 things you can do. 1. Subscribe. Support the show by clicking the subscription link in the show notes. 2. Review on iTunes, on our website, www.afraidofnothingpodcast.com, or on whatever app you listen to. 3. Donate. When you go to our website, click the cute coffee cup icon. Or in the show notes, click the subscription link. 4. Share. Sharing really is caring. Tell your friends and even your enemies to check out the show. 5. Watch. Wait a minute, it's a podcast, not a movie. Actually, it's both. Check the show notes to find out where to watch the documentary. You can also rent it on Prime Video. That's it. Oh, one last thing. Enjoy this episode. Hey everybody, I hope you're enjoying that new intro music. It's by my friend and ukulele instructor Andy Cummings from City Music in Leominster, Massachusetts. So a shout out to Andy. I gave him an Afraid of Nothing hoodie and I got this great jingle, so enjoy. Speaking of enjoying, tonight's episode is a little bit different. It's all about starting your own podcast, and it's about to launch after this opening bit.
In a world where nothing is known, nothing is certain, reality is not real. Wake up! Be afraid of nothing. I'm Bob Heskey.
Robert.
The host with the ghost.
This is my podcast, based on my paranormal documentary, Afraid of Nothing. Each episode, we talk to people who see life and the afterlife through a different lens. Join me.
Who is this large man? And what's he doing in our bedroom?
As we lift the veil and open our minds to see beyond our eyes lie. This is Afraid of Nothing.
Several years ago, when I made my first feature, Blessed, a couple of my friends and people I knew, I noticed kind of were inspired. They made their own films, and I think it was because they thought, well, if this guy can do it, I can too. So they went on and had their own success as well. Now, I think the same thing is probably true with podcasting. Many of you out there probably enjoy the podcast, but you're also probably itching to make your own podcast too, but you don't know quite how to get started. Well, that's what this episode is all about. I call it Afraid to Start a Podcast. How I fearlessly launched the Afraid of Nothing podcast and why you can too. Over the next 30 to 40 minutes or so, I'll cover some key steps on what I did to start a podcast. I've also created an ebook, which you can download at Buy Me a Coffee on my website for a small stipend. It has a ton more information and a lot of links that you'll find super helpful. It's a great companion piece, and it's all that you need to get going after listening to this episode. First, a disclosure. This episode is for informational purposes only and is based on my personal experience and preferences in launching the Afraid of Nothing podcast. How you proceed is up to you. Be daring, be bold, be awesome. Just don't blame me. Now some of the stuff we'll cover. It'll include picking a podcast platform, how to create cover art, audio intro and outro, which DAW to use, which online interview platform to use, audio sweetening, wacky sound effects, episode art, when to start, how to get guests, how much time to spend editing, how to survive imposter syndrome and downloads depression. Should you have a website? How much does all this cost? And when should you quit? I'll also remind you again, the ebook in Buy Me a Coffee. If you download that, you'll get some great information. Plus, there'll be some affiliate links to help you get started with the equipment and services that are right for you. I'm also going to have those in the show notes. All right, let's get to it.
Chapter 1.
Picking a podcast platform. There are several podcast platforms out there, but I'm going to make it really easy. I really would recommend choosing to one of two, either Buzzsprout or Libsyn. If you are a true newbie like I was, go with Buzzsprout, as they have tremendous support, a Facebook group, and great educational videos that cover just about everything you need to get started. If you're more tech savvy and want more metrics, go with Libsyn. Some of the other podcast platforms you may consider, if you want to go beyond the two I just mentioned, are Captivate, Transistor, Castos, RSS.com, Podbean, and Resonate. But really, I recommend you go with Buzzsprout. Full disclosure, I've got an affiliate link to that, but they're awesome. And if you even ask Pat Flynn, who's the guru of podcasting, he recommends Buzzsprout as well. Chapter 2. How to create cover art. Before you get ready to publish your podcast, you need to have the right stuff done first, and one of those is the cover art. For my podcast, the Afraid of Nothing podcast, you'll notice it's that kind of microphone with that, Scream type of look, and it says Afraid of Nothing with Bob Heskey. I had that created for me on Fiverr, all right? But basically, what you'll need to know is your cover art must meet Apple Podcast artwork requirements, which is really 3,000 by 3,000 pixels, a resolution of 72 dpi. It's either a JPEG or PNG file type with RGB color space. If you don't know what that means, have your designer on Fiverr or whatever service you use handle that for you. You want to make sure your art is attention-getting and easy to read. It's literally a billboard for your podcast. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, go to canva.com. They have free or paid depending on which plan you choose. I use canva.com. I didn't use it to create my cover art, but I use it to create my episode art, and I use the free version. If you want to pay on the cheap, use a service like Fiverr, Fiverr. It's up to you to find and manage the designer you want at your budget, but it worked for me. Another option, if you have a little bit of a bigger budget, like $200 or more, is a place called 99 Designs. And if you use Buzzsprout, they have a discount on their resources tab. So if you sign up with Buzzsprout, they will get you a discount to 99 Designs if you go to the resources tab on Buzzsprout. Here are some quick tips to create cover art. Get your podcast artwork dimensions right. Check out the competition. What are other shows doing? Are there some designs that you like? Maybe mirror those or ask your designer to kind of do it in the vein of that type of key art that you really admire. Make sure that your key art clearly communicates your podcast message. Keep it consistent with your podcast logo and brand. Decide what type of images you'll use. Typography matters. Prefer to go with sans serif versus serif. Use your words carefully. You don't have a lot of real estate, so don't use too much. And last, just have fun with it.
Chapter 3.
Audio intro and outro. Now, if you guys have been listening to my podcast, you hear that little bit at the beginning of, in a world where blah, blah, blah. So that's basically the intro, and at the end you'll hear a little bit of a shorter version of that bit. You've been listening to the Afraid of Nothing podcast with that same music. That's the outro. Now, that I had produced for me. I made a movie, so I knew a good audio guy, so I wrote the script and recorded the voiceover myself, and I had them kind of sweeten it and produce some really great sound for me. By going with an outside audio person, it cost me about $200, but that was a really good deal, to be honest with you. A cheaper way to do your audio intro and outro is, I just told you earlier, I just bartered with my ukulele instructor. I gave him an Afraid of Nothing hoodie for a jingle. So it's a great way. If you get music on the cheap and you have a really good voice, you can simply play that music like I did at the intro of this episode, under your voiceover for the opening and close. So that's another way to do it. So first, pay someone. Second, have a friend or musician, do a little contract with them and get some music on the cheap and use the music. You just record your voiceover over it for your intro and outro. Another options, there are two main types of lower cost music that are safe to use for your podcast. One is royalty free and two is Creative Commons. And I go in the ebook, I have links which kind of defines these. Some websites to consider: Pixabay, YouTube Audio Library, Free Music Archive, SoundCloud, and Incompetech. These vary from royalty-free to Creative Commons. Another option is to pay for usage, and some of the best sites are Soundstripe, Audio Jungle, and Storyblocks. Once again, Buzzsprout, should you go with them, has a discount on Soundstripe on their Resources tab. Coughley 4. Where did I get Coughley from? You'll have to watch the movie Lamb to find out. Which DAW? What is a DAW, you're saying? A DAW, D-A-W, is a digital audio workstation. It's the application where you edit the audio. If you're just starting out and you want free, go with Audacity for Windows or GarageBand for Mac. Although I must say, you can also download a version of Audacity for Mac as well. If you want a great DAW, built with the podcaster in mind, and can afford to buy it, go with Hindenburg. Hindenburg Journalist goes for $99, and Hindenburg Pro is $399. Once again, Buzzsprout has a discount for Hindenburg. I recommend you do the free trial first. In the ebook, I have a sidebar about some of the best audio editing software of 2021. So take a look at that and, see what's right for you.
Capitulo Cinco.
Which online interview platform? This is the platform where you hear me interviewing, like with my co-host Kyle Carvin and one or two or more guests. That's basically kind of like Zoom. You go to a platform and you send a link out and everybody goes to your recording room and you record the interview and then you download it and put it into your DAW to edit, right? So there are several online interview programs to choose from. These include Zoom, CleanFeed, Squadcast, and Zencastr. There are a ton of different payment options within each one. Some are free, some cost more. It depends on which service and which type of plan you choose. So, for example, for Zencastr, I pay a certain fee because there's a certain amount of hours that I want to be able to have every month and certain services I look for. I've used Zoom. I have it as a backup. CleanFeed is good. I did Squadcast. It's all right. There were some customer service issues, but it's good. Most people like it. I just use Zencastr. Zencastr, I should say, isn't super Mac friendly. If there's ever issues where I got to do Zoom, it's because someone has a Mac and they haven't uploaded Chrome, which you need Chrome for Zencastr, and so we'll default to Zoom. But I like Zencastr. It's for audio, but you can also do video as well. It's a really nice sound, and I found it pretty reliable. Like I also said, you can record video or just audio. I do just audio, but that's me. Another pretty good option for an online interview program you may want to check out is Riverside.fm. Once again, you get a discount on Buzzsprout if you have Buzzsprout in their resource tabs. In the ebook, I have a sidebar. If you click a link, it'll give you an article about the best podcast recording software. Chapter 6. Audio Sweetening. Now, when I say audio sweetening or audio enhancement, it simply means making the sound better. You can do this yourself, use an outside app, or leverage music mastering if you have Buzzsprout. In Buzzsprout, it costs an additional monthly fee. Now, if you want to do it yourself, you can find a ton of great tutorials online. There's some I have in the ebook for Audacity. A guy named Mike Russell has a great YouTube channel with cross-platform tutorials. GarageBand, which is, like I said, for Mac users. So there's a lot of great tutorials you can search online. I also put a couple links in the ebook. If you want to save time and get pro quality, you can use an app like Auphonic. You can easily set up a preset for your podcast. All you have to do is upload your WAV file or MP3 and have Auphonic automatically do the work for you, kind of like Magic Mastering does. It usually takes about 5 minutes or so, depending on your bandwidth. Now, I mentioned Magic Mastering, which is part of the Buzzsprout kind of suite of services. It's built right into Buzzsprout, so when you upload it, it's just an extra step. So it's really a nifty, convenient tool. It works great, but it is a monthly add-on fee, which I found is a little bit more expensive than using Auphonic. So if you want less steps in post-production, use Magic Mastering. If you want to pay a little less with an extra step, use Auphonic. They're both great, and you can't go wrong with them.
Gee, boss, what chapter is this? Oh, yeah, chapter 7.
Now, what about those wacky sound effects sometimes you want to inject in the opening or end or even in the middle of your podcast. Say if someone swears and you want to keep your G rating and you want to cover it with like a censor sound. Unless you're a voice wizard like Michael Winslow, best known from Police Academy, you'll probably need to use a sound effects library service or search tutorials online on how to create your own voice effects. I use Zapsplat, and you may know if you look at my show notes, I attribute them in the show notes and in the podcast on occasion. There are others. These include Freesound, YouTube Audio Library, a sound effect, SoundGator, Storyblocks, Music Radio Creative. When in doubt, you can also make your own. You can check out a book called The Sound Effects Library by Rick Veers. I'll have that in the show notes. It's in the ebook as well. It is an affiliate link, so I do get a commission if you do purchase it. Thank you very much. And there's also, if you look online, there's cool ways to do some things with your voice. I in a couple episodes, give my voice a demonic tone, a deep demonic tone, or even a deeper godlike type tone. So there are places you can look online for that. In the ebook, I give a link to an example for a video on how to make your voice sound demonic. So check it out and have fun. Chapter 8. Episode art. Look, it's not necessary, but it's good to have because it adds visual uniqueness to each episode, rather than just putting your key art up every time. As I mentioned several minutes ago, I use Canva.com. I use the free service. If you want to use the paid service, Buzzsprout has a discount for it. For year 1 of my podcast, I used a basic template and I uploaded an image every time pretty much, and that cost me about $1 a pop on Canva. For year 2, I just used a template design. So I paid $1 once, found a template design, a look that I liked, with really no imagery, just more type treatment. I edit it with a unique title and guest, as I mentioned, with no photos. I've liked that for year 2. Not quite sure what I'm going to do in year 3, which is coming up quick. Chapter 9. When to start. This is different for everybody, and some people get so nervous they take forever before they start. I basically took a month or so doing research, watching instructive videos online, and reading posts so I gathered as much information as I could. Then I went and got my cover art and my intro outro done. And then I in my DAW, I picked a DAW that was good for me. I used Audacity and I recorded a couple episodes. I think I did 3. This is good because you learn how to do it and you have a backlog of content so you don't feel pressure to keep pumping out the content out of the gate. So I had I had 3 or 4 that I was ready when I kicked this off a couple years ago. Now, how many shows do you post a month? I spend a lot of time editing my shows, which I'll cover a little bit later. So I tend to do 2 shows a month. Probably 4 is best, or weekly if you want to build followers. And you're probably best to upload them on a schedule, like, for example, every Wednesday. That's the best thing. Upload a new episode either bi-weekly on the same day or every week on the same day. I'm really, really bad at this. I work and life gets in the way, so I upload when I get the episodes done. So don't be me. Be more structured. Chapter 10. Now, how do you get guests? So for me, it was a little bit different. I made a documentary, and that kind of inspired the podcast. I had a backlog of contacts that I could go to. I went, for the first couple episodes, I went to several people that were involved with my film to start off. And then I started branching out. People I knew in the paranormal community said, hey, this person would be a great guest. So there was a lot of word of mouth referrals. That's great. If you don't have a network that you can leverage, what you can also do is just, go to Spotify or whatever, or iTunes or whatever platform you like. Listen to a bunch of podcasts, in your kind of same vein of what you do. Find the guests that you like. See if they have their contact information in the show notes. Or seek them out with a Google search or Facebook or on LinkedIn and then send them an email message. Do something very simple as, hello, I heard you on XYZ podcast. I'd love to book you on my show. Here's a link to my show so you can check it out. Please email me if interested and I'll schedule something and we'll get going. I hope we can connect. So it's as simple as that. There are also apps like Podmatch, which automatically matches the ideal podcast host and guest for interviews. I found it pretty easy to use, and I have already booked 2 interviews, which were really good experiences for me, and it didn't cost me anything. It's a free service. Another resource is the Buzzsprout podcast community. Interestingly enough, you don't have to be a Buzzsprout subscriber to be in this Facebook group. It's really open to everyone. What they do is they have a guest connection Wednesday, so you can kind of reach out and try to connect with people. And to promote your show, which we'll talk later, they actually have Mondays where you can share your latest episode. So it's really cool. The ebook has a couple of things you can go to read for more information. So again, check it out. And we're back. That musical interlude was thanks to Andy Cummings, again, my ukulele instructor at City Music in Leominster, Massachusetts. Thank you, Andy. I love it. Great work. Our listeners will be hearing more of that in the episodes to come. Chapter whatever. So how much time to spend on editing? Boy, is that a can of worms. It really depends on who you listen to, what they tell you and how much you should spend editing, how fussy you are, how quickly you work, and the tools that you use. For myself, and I'm kind of an outlier, I spend 8 to 10 hours per 1 hour episode. That's right. That's way more than most people do. Some people will say you should spend no more than 2 to 3 times the length of your episode. So where I'm spending 8 to 10 hours, they're saying you should spend 2 to 3 hours. Why do I spend so much time? A lot of it is in the edit, is in the Audacity edit. I literally go through the whole thing, comb through it. I get rid of the breaths, I get rid of the ums, the you-knows, the likes, the whatever, the side comments. If it takes my guests 10 seconds to finally figure out what they want to say, I will listen and cut out the part that's not relevant. So I spend a lot of time, depending on the guest, editing each episode. Now, when you think about each episode, think of all the steps you have to do. You have to schedule and record the interview. If you have a guest that has a book, you may have to spend time reading the book. So that's extra time there, right? There could be several hours right there. There could be 4 to 6 or even more hours. A lot of times what I'll do, if it's, I have Audible. So if someone has a book, I'll listen to it in Audible. And I'll listen to it, when I go to bed or at night or when I'm relaxing and take some notes. But that adds time as well. So in the whole process, there's scheduling, recording the interview. There's your research, doing your questions, reading their book or parts of their books and find out more about them. There's editing, the actual edit in Audacity. There's the episode art creation. There's the post audio with a phonic, which really doesn't take that long, but it's a step. And then there's publishing on Buzzsprout with the show notes. You have to write the show notes. And once you have the show notes and you have the show live and posted, you need to update your website if you have one, including guest information. So all that stuff takes some time for me. So if you can get it done in 2 to 3 hours for a 1 hour episode, you're amazing and kudos to you. But for me, it takes longer, which is why I do 2 shows a month versus a show weekly, because I have a full-time job of divorce. I have kids that I see and have to spend time with, and there's other things I'd like to do as well. So I dedicate 15 to 20 hours a month on my podcast episodes. In the end, it's really up to you. If you prefer natural dialogue, which means you're okay with all the errors, the heavy breaths, the ums, the you-knows, you can cut your edit significantly shorter. Again, personally, I spend more time as I want to have a better listening experience for my audience, and it's really because of a personal thing. I was on a very well-known podcast several years ago. I'd been on the show a couple times, and this episode in particular, it was very painful for me to listen to because I said, almost every other word, which drove me up a wall, So I wish he had taken the time to edit it, but I understood because this person just cranks out a ton of content. So I was very unhappy with myself, and it was kind of a painful experience listening to myself. Even recently, I was on an interview on a YouTube channel, and I slipped back. It wasn't this time it was the word like. I said the word like a lot. as in, like, or it's like watching TV or watching a pot boil, like it's like that. So I would do that. So I have to find myself correcting myself a lot. And so I hate to subject my errors to the audience, so I take the extra time to edit those out if I'm not perfect in the interview. And I do the same out of respect for my guest. I want to make them sound as good as possible. So that's why I spend more time doing it. Now, there are some tools that podcasters swear by. For example, Descript is a great tool that makes audio editing as easy as editing a Word doc. And I have a link to that in the ebook. So there are some tools out there that can reduce your time. You can also outsource it. I mean, if you have the budget, it's not super expensive to outsource it to an outside editing service. They're just probably not going to be as picky as you are. They're going to do a very quick edit and make it sound good, but that's fine. You may just want to say, hey, I'll record it. I'll hand off the file to an outside person to edit it for me. I'll trust their judgment to make it sound good, and we'll be on to the next. So how much time to spend editing? Totally up to you. It can be just a couple hours per show, up to 8 to 10 like me, because I'm this crazy guy that wants to have the best product I can. So hopefully I will work in the new year to cut that back a couple more hours. But it's a wide range, and you really could get yourself into a situation where you're spending too much time and being too perfect. So be aware you have options. If you edit it yourself, maybe be less picky. Or if you want to outsource it to someone, you can do that. Or you can use a tool like Descript where the process to edit is a bit easier than just doing it in Audacity, where you can almost edit a Word doc and easily spot the ums and you knows and take them out that way. So your preference and your budget. Chapter whatever comes after whatever. How to avoid imposter syndrome and downloads depression. I can't tell you how many people that I've heard or talked to that suffer from imposter syndrome, which is that suffocating, nagging self-doubt that you simply aren't good enough to do a podcast and no one's going to listen to you. And I say, hogwash. I made a podcast and 2 feature films, and I made a ton of errors along the way, and I got them out there, and they're all good products in the end. At least I think so, and a lot of the reviews think so. So can't you. The ebook has some links to a blog you can listen to or a podcast series if you need a little more inspiration. But what it boils down to is don't put too much pressure on yourself. I mean, the good thing about a podcast is chances are you're not going to have a huge audience starting out of the gate. So build your rhythm, build your voice, build your brand, and then it will grow with you. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Don't just have the show be about you. Have really good guests and have some good questions and let your guest carry the show and let them carry most of the dialogue, and then you'll have a good product and you'll have a really good conversation that you'll enjoy and your audience will, and you'll build confidence in yourself because you're a good podcaster, you're a good interviewer, and you're also a good listener. So try that. Now about those nagging downloads, or depressing downloads, I should say. Buzzsprout has metrics where you can log on and see how many downloads you had recently for your most recent episode, or all of your episodes, or the past 30 days, or whatever, all these time periods. And I find myself checking out that many times a day. And I probably shouldn't be. To be honest with you, when you start out, unless you're a YouTube personality and you've built an audience, chances are your downloads will be very small. I started painfully slow with about 25 downloads per episode in month 1 and 2 maybe. Then I climbed to 50, then 100. Then I was on a national show again and got a bump again. And now I do probably 400 to 600 downloads per episode. But some episodes get over 1,000, and my most popular is well over 6,000 downloads. So some episodes resonate with people really, really well. Most of them are in the 400 to 600 range, which is good. I really want to get it to over 1,000 per episode. Hopefully I'll do that in year 3. But I guess the net is stick with it. Keep creating good content. Keep building your fan base, and you'll get there. Some people may want to jump the gun and do advertising right out of the gate. I don't recommend this because it's expensive and you really haven't had a chance to perfect your voice and your brand and what your program is about. I would wait several months before you start doing that. And quite frankly, it's expensive. It can cost you can easily be spending $300 to $500 or more a month, and then this becomes an expensive hobby. I would caution against that. It's up to you what your budget is. But if I had extra money, I would put it more into services that would help me have a more enjoyable experience recording the program, maybe equipment or services on editing or things like that. That's where I would spend my money. Doesn't mean you can't promote your show. The Buzzsprout podcast community on Facebook runs a share your latest episode post every Monday for members to promote their podcasts. I use that. There are also great resources online. The ebook I have has 12 Facebook groups about podcasts you can join, a post that you can read. And there was also a survey done from the top podcast marketers I have a link to as well, what they do to generate traffic. But really what it comes down to avoid imposter syndrome, don't listen to the dark side. Just have confidence in yourself and get the stuff out there. And about downloads depression, don't worry about it. I know it's a great feeling. It's just like when you have a post on Facebook and you get a ton of likes, your endorphins fire. But, in reality, just focus on getting the best show and the best content out there. The most successful podcasters, really, they're at this for several years before they see a spike in years 3 to 5. So stick with it, learn your trade, be good at it, enjoy the journey. Downloads will come. So stay with it. That's my recommendation.
Chapter 13. That's so lucky. Chapter 13.
Should I have a website? Buzzsprout has a basic website for podcasts built into its program. The only thing is the URL is theirs, not yours. So in year 2, I decided, you know what? I think I want to move it to my own website. So I tried a service called Podpage. I've loved the results. I mean, it's super easy to create a website with Podpage. And they have different tiers for plans. There's free, there's basic, and there's a pro plan. I actually went to the pro plan after a couple months because I wanted to have a blog and some other capabilities, features. And I think it's worth it. It's an added cost, but the support is phenomenal. I think of all the services I've used in my life, Buzzsprout and Podpage probably have just top-of-the-line customer service in terms of responsiveness and tools to make you get the most out of what you're doing with their service. So I affiliate link to them. I do get a commission if you do use them for my affiliate link, but I'm telling you, full disclosure, I've had nothing but good experiences with Buzzsprout as a service for hosting my podcast, and Podpage. If you do a website, not only myself, but if you do some research, I think they get unanimous approval. They really get a thumbs up from everybody. They're always evolving and they're super responsive. So well with the service, if you ask me. So should you have a website? It can be built into your podcast host. But, if you want to have the people going to your website versus to the website host, and you want to start building a list, you may want to consider having a website, but you may want to wait a couple months or even a year and then move it from your podcast platform website to your own personal website. That's what I did.
Chapter 14.
How much does it cost? Oh, that's a big question. And look, it varies, right? Mileage may vary depending on who's driving the podcast. But here are some kind of broad strokes I can give you based on my experience. I would say the total cost for me to get started in year 1 was roughly $900 to $1,400. That includes the cover art, the intro, outro music, a subscriber and paying a monthly fee for Buzzsprout. That was $18 a month. The interview platform, that was Zencastr. I actually had a couple different ones, but Zencastr, I netted out with them. That's $20 a month. I used Zoom in year 2 as a backup to Zencastr because some people were more comfortable with Zoom, and that was an extra $15 to $16 a month. You don't have to do that, but I did. And then for audio sweetening like Auphonic, I buy credits probably every 3 or 4 months, so I probably spend $50 or a little more a year on that. Or you could pay $6.95 or whatever the cost is for Magic Mastering on Buzzsprout per month. So it's up to you. And then if you want to have a website, there's a cost for that too if you do use the basic or pro plan versus the free plan. So those costs vary. Out of the gate, you probably need to have $300 to $500 just to get your cover art, your intro, outro music, your mic, your headset, your basic home studio setup. We're going to assume you already have a computer that you can use. Your monthly cost, that tends to be your podcast hosting platform like a Buzzsprout, your interview platform like a Zencastr, and your audio sweetening, if you want to use it, we mentioned like Auphonic or Magic Mastering. Add-ons, you may incur more costs if you want to get better equipment or you want more user-friendly software that makes you more efficient, like Hindenburg or Descript or a website like Podpage. So those costs can ratchet up things. But I would say conservatively, $300 to $500 to start, and then maybe $50 to $75 a month. And then if you have disposable income to up your game for more equipment or better software, that adds to it too, and all those costs vary. Now, how can you offset the cost, the money that you put in? Well, one way is through sponsors, but you have to first build an audience and have a certain amount of downloads before people want to take you seriously. So I'd wait until you have at least 300 downloads per episode, quite frankly, which could take you several months to do that. There is a service called Podcorn, where they have a bunch of people that advertise. They want to advertise on your show as a sponsorship, as a pre-roll, a mid-roll, or a post-roll at the end of your show. You kind of set the price on that, and you send them either an audio or an email of your capabilities and why they should choose you. And they may or may not get back to you. I would say 9 times out of 10, they don't. So there's probably a 10% hit rate. Some people may have more success. But I've had some success with Podcorn in year 2. It's helped defray costs, some of the production costs, not all of it, but it's been helpful. Other avenues are donations. If you've got a fan base that like what you do, things like Buy Me a Coffee. I have on my website a coffee cup. If you click it, you go to Buy Me a Coffee and you can support me. I also have it in my show notes. Or you can set up a Patreon page if you want to set up tiers of support with exclusives for people who donate to you every month. I don't do Patreon yet. I don't have the time to do extra exclusives for members. And, I just do Buy Me a Coffee. And so Buy Me a Coffee is where you can actually get the ebook I've been talking about. As for luck with it, with just donations, really not much. I promote it before my show and at the end. So not much yet, but maybe 2022 I'll get some coffees. So we'll see. And hopefully at least some of you will download the ebook because I think that's a great resource and it's super cheap. Okay, a quick editor's note. I did mention I say about 300 downloads before I start looking for sponsorships. That's the smaller ones for like Podcorn. If you listen to podcasts like Spotify, those bigger shows have bigger sponsorship. In that case, if you're going after the bigger boys or even the mid-sized boys sponsors, you probably want to have a minimum of 1,000 or more. Probably the top 15 advertisers on U.S. podcasts ranked by ad spending up until July, in this year from January through July, is BetterHelp, ZipRecruiter, Geico, HelloFresh, NBC Universal, Amazon, ExpressVPN, Progressive, Stamps.com, Squarespace, SimpliSafe, Capital One, Best Friends, Moisan Coors, and Comcast. And that was from an article on eMarketer, and the source is Magellan AI, September 13, 2021. Chapter 15. When to quit. What's the answer? How do you know when it's time to quit? The answer is it's kind of like a bad relationship. When it stops being fun, right? That's when you quit. But you also want to be careful that you don't hit the brakes too quick. You don't want to hit the brakes too hard, too quick, because I think there are some guideposts and milestones you want to consider first. So the first one is the number 7. 7 episodes. Just like, if most people get past 7 years of marriage, it can probably last through the hard times. That didn't work for me, but sometimes that's a good guidepost. You can make it through 7 years, you've spent enough time with each other, and you've kind of worked through some kinks, better chance of lasting longer. Same thing with your podcast. Stick with it for at least 7 episodes. See where you're at, see if you're enjoying it, and then kind of make a decision. I still think that's too early. I think 7, get to 7 first, and then you really want to get to 20 or 30 episodes, I think, before you can really know. You give yourself a chance for your podcast to mature, for you to build a brand, to get some listeners, and to have those downloads increase. That's what I would really go for. And then after 20 or 30 episodes and you're just exhausted and you're not getting anything out of it, I would, rather than quit, I would put it on pause. Like, for example, on Buzzsprout, rather than paying the $18 a month subscription fee, you can actually put your show on archive where you're not producing any more shows, but you're archiving all the shows you have with them. So if you quit, the shows go away. They're gone. They're not out there anywhere in the podcast world. People can't listen to you anymore. So if you quit, that's the end of your show. It's just like when you die, you're gone. There's nothing left of you. The same thing with your podcast. So what you can do is you can put it on pause and archive your podcast. So all the episodes to date are on your website or with Buzzsprout, and they're out there. They're on all the different sites that, they're on iTunes, Pandora, all those different places. So they're still out in the internet world. So I would do that first. Give yourself a natural break. Maybe you break up your podcast into seasons, and then so after season 1, you take a couple weeks or a couple months break, and then you come back with season 2. I would experiment with that first. It takes 3 to 5 years before you can really see some results. Unless you are a YouTuber or a personality with a built-in brand, most people, it takes several years to slowly build up an audience and followers. By the way, when I made a film, once we shot the film, and it still was another couple years to get it through post-production out on the film festival circuit and then picked up by distribution. So it's a commitment. And just as a movie is a, 3 to 5 year commitment to get it out there, a podcast is the same thing. So I would expect the first 2 years to be growth. And the third year, you may start to see some results. And that's what I'm hoping in year 3 for myself. If you can stick with it for as long as you can. If you need to take a break, just pause it and then maybe have your show in archive and then come back after a couple months and refreshed and tackle it again. That's what I recommend. And if it's really not fun and you don't want to do it, then you know better than anyone, don't do it. As for me, I have a 3-year plan, and I got to tell you, after years 2, so far I enjoy the process. I'm proud of what I'm able to do. I'm had some super guests that I've met, and it's, for me, it's like I get to talk to people I normally wouldn't speak to and get some questions answered that are on my mind and topics of interest to me. So I have some great conversations with people, and it's been super fun to this point. I'm going to check things after year 3 in 2022 and say, how am I doing? Is it worth doing this going forward? But that's my plan. Hopefully you'll find the right plan for you. When to quit, when it's right, but don't do it too quick. And folks, that's it. Like I said, if you want more detailed information or a printed version of this or a digital version, there is an ebook in the Buy Me a Coffee app. So that look for the show notes for a link for that. Just please read the show notes and it'll show you how to access that. In the ebook, I have some links. Also in the show notes, I have some links. I will get a commission if you purchase some of the stuff there for equipment or subscription services for affiliate links. It won't cost you more, but it will help me out and help me defray some of the costs. So if you do choose to do that, I appreciate it, but just want to be upfront about that. But in closing, look, thank you for listening, and thank you for listening to my podcast. If you want to make a podcast yourself, you can do it. Don't let any doubters or anyone tell you can't. Just get started. Don't stop. Be patient and have fun. So I hope you had fun listening to this. Have a great day, everybody, and a great year in 2022. May whatever dreams or aspirations you have or wish or want happen.
You've been listening to the Afraid of Nothing podcast. Please subscribe and like us on Facebook. Until next time, stay scared.
Hey, you're still here? Great. Then why not listen to another episode? Visit AfraidOfNothingPodcast.com to peruse all the shows. That's AfraidOfNothingPodcast.com. And while you're there, click the coffee cup icon to buy me a coffee and leave a review. I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming episode. And the world will know how swell you are.